Well, hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. You know, the Toyota Corolla is one of the best-selling nameplates all across the globe, but what if you guys are looking for a Corolla with slightly more flavor versus your neighbor's LE or XLE or SE or even XSE trim? Well, that Corolla is what comes to mind. This is the 2021 Corolla Apex Edition, and no, it's not a Corolla TRD, but it's the closest thing you're gonna get because Toyota has upgraded the suspension, added stickier tires to it, and made it look far more aggressive than even a regular XSE version. So as you can see, I'm testing this one this week. There's only 6,000 of them to be made. And the big question I want answered, is this 2021 Corolla Apex the sport compact Corolla we've been hoping for? That's what we're here to find out. You can see, looking at the exterior styling of the Corolla Apex, it takes basically the SE or the XSE and adds a little bit more spice to it. My tester, of course, being a manual, is based off of the SE Corolla. So you have the corporate front fascia that was introduced on the Corolla sedan. It looks slightly different from the hatchback. You can see it's got this black mesh grille insert. You also have these copper accents with the LED daytime running lights. Full LED headlights are standard. That's right, you get LED low and high beams, LED daytime running lights, and LED turn signals, which really made this Corolla, this generation, feel a lot more upscale than the previous generation model. And as you can see, looking at this one here, painted in black, it definitely looks much more menacing. You can also get this in like a gray, a white, and a silver color. And I actually really like the way the black looks because it just makes this car look more aggressive. You can only get the Corolla Apex as a sedan. Now looking at the wheels, you can see they are slightly unique to the Apex. Black painted 18-inch wheels riding on 225/40 width tires. You can also get summer tires. My particular tester looks like it has the all-season rubbers. So if you guys live in a warmer climate, you may want to go for the summer rubbers to give this thing more grip. Now looking at the rest of the profile, Toyota did lower this car by about 1/2 inch. They did that by upgrading the suspension, putting on lowering springs. That has improved the handling. We'll see how it affects the ride quality later on. No sunroof is available on the SE. You have to go for the XSE. But Toyota does offer a color contrast black roof, which obviously it's black on black with this car, so you can't really tell if this one has the contrasting roof or whatnot. My tester also has an optional rear spoiler here for $495. This is kind of like that wing style spoiler. It's similar to the one you can find on a Camry TRD. Really makes this car look a lot more spicy on the back, which I really like. You got the blacked out badges. There's an Apex badge over there, which on this black exterior color, you can't really see much. Some of you may like that, some of you may not, some of you may prefer the contrast. The exhaust system over here you can see is slightly unique to the Corolla Apex. It is tuned to make a little bit more of a noise. You also have more of the copper accents, some fake vents, and the body kit looks even more aggressive. But overall, let me know in the comments below what you think of the styling of the Corolla Apex. I think it looks good, but I'd probably go for it in white. Opening up the trunk, you can see cargo capacity measures the same as the regular Corolla, 13.1 cubic feet of space. And if you want to fold down those seats, they fold down in a 60/40 manner. Now underneath the hood of the Corolla Apex, those of you who are hoping for more power are going to be pretty disappointed. You're going to have to wait for the GR version of the Corolla. That's the one that should have over 250 turbocharged horsepower. This one here just has the standard 2-liter 4-cylinder that we've tested in the SE and the XSE trims. And sadly, Toyota didn't upgrade the power at all. It's still a 2-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder with direct injection. This is part of their dynamic force engine family. It makes 169 horsepower and 151 pound-feet of torque. Those numbers are perfectly adequate in regular Corollas, but it's a pretty big disappointment considering the Apex aggressive looks. Other competitors like the Forte GT, the Elantra N-Line, the Civic Si have over 200 horsepower. They have turbocharged engines. Now it all goes out through a 6-speed manual like my tester, which is very rare. Only 125 of these will offer a manual. The manual also has their IMT, which has automatic rev matching, which is pretty unexpected in a Corolla. Corollas are all front-wheel drive. Most of these Apex models will come with the dynamic shift CVT, which has a physical first gear. That CVT does improve the fuel economy because this one here is rated at 29 in the city, 29 in the city, 36 on the highway. The CVT goes up by about 1 or 2 mpg. Now, this Corolla as well weighs around just over 3,000 pounds. And 0 to 60 performance should be in the low to mid 7-second range, depending on which transmission you have and how good a launch you can get. So moving inside the Corolla Apex, those of you who are hoping for as many changes on the outside as it is on the inside, you might be slightly disappointed. My tester here, like I said, based off of the SE trim, includes an interior that is practically the same as the last Corolla SE that I last tested. As you can see, looking at the inside at a glance, I like the two-tone combination. This 8-inch touchscreen comes standard. It does include Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, and Amazon Alexa. You can see the seats. These are the gray cloth bucket seats that you get on the SE. The XSE trim will give you a leatherette seat with a power driver seat, which my sister has a manual seat. The cloth itself feels okay. It just kind of feels like, you know, every other cloth material you get in the compact sedan segment, the mainstream one. When I shut the door, it has a relatively solid sounding thump, pretty much the same as the last Corolla that I tested. The key fob hasn't changed. You still get the smart key access system. It does have the intelligent mode, so you can kind of just put the clutch in, make sure it's in neutral, and then the button to start up the engine is over here. And you can hear, listening to this car start up, you know, it doesn't sound very different from the last Corolla that I tested. Mostly what I hear is just the same buzzy 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. I don't really hear more of an exhaust noise, which is interesting. So we'll have to talk about later on in the test drive. Now, in terms of the materials, you can see the front door panel here is a soft touch injection molded plastic. You have a soft tex leatherette material here on the armrest, which is nice. The driver window is automatic up down, so is the passenger, and so are the back windows. So one touch for all 4, which is really nice. The buttons themselves, they have that typical Toyota tactile feel. Definitely wouldn't mistake it for a Lexus, but it is relatively nice in here. All Corollas also include the single zone automatic climate control. You have a soft touch injection molded plastic on this part with that faux stitching. It's soft touch here. However, the plastic on the upper part here does feel a little bit cheap. I don't love that. The bezel for the infotainment system, it's a floating display, like I said. However, it's a very thick bezel. I wish Toyota would kind of thin this out a little bit, make it look a little bit more modern, and also kind of expand the borders to make this look a little bit larger, a little bit more premium looking, as opposed to this, which looks a little bit more aftermarket-y. The steering wheel, it's the same steering wheel that I've shown you in a Camry and a RAV4. It does offer tilt and telescoping adjustments, which is nice. The leather on the wheel has some copper stitching on it, but other than that, other than the copper stitching there and on the seats, you would be hard-pressed to see any differences between this and a regular Corolla. The gauges you can see are pretty basic on the SE. The XSE gives you a slightly larger 7-inch helper screen. This looks, you know, a little bit more traditional, which some of you may prefer. Over here you can see there's a place where you can put your phone. No wireless phone charging pad on this one. The IMT button, if you turn that on, turns on and off the automatic rev matching, and it makes this car very difficult to stall. So those of you who don't know how to drive stick, the Corolla is a really great option because it's really good in how it works and how easy it is to drive. You can see Apple CarPlay is included on the smaller 8-inch display. You know, it's pretty much what you expect in the segment. There's nothing super special about it. There's no factory embedded GPS on this particular one. So instead you can see, you can go over to the Apple CarPlay, which is what most of you are going to do anyways. When you put the car into reverse, you can see there's a backup camera, but no trajectory. It's a very basic backup camera, no parking sensors either. So remember, this is just a Corolla. The shifter itself, it's got very long throws. It's smooth enough, but Toyota didn't even upgrade the transmission at all for the Apex model. So they could have added a short throw shifter. I really wish they did, but sadly they didn't add anything like that. It's all kind of hard touch plastic. This feels very cheap over here, so not really liking the way this looks. You have an electronic parking brake, 2 cup holders here. Again, some of the plastics feel a little bit more on the bargain basement side. There is a nice padded armrest here and a power or storage cubby over there, which is relatively deep. The SE does not offer a sunroof. You got to go to an XSE version of this car to get something like that. The glove box you can see is damped, and it's also pretty large. So in terms of storage, it's not bad in here. In terms of features, you know, it has what you expect. The Toyota Safety Sense 2.0 is standard. So you have automatic emergency braking, adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist. However, my tester does not have blind spot monitoring. That is optional if you guys go for the XSE package. Now, looking at the back seat of the Corolla, this generation also got considerably smaller versus the previous generation. It got smaller because Toyota made the chassis stiffer. They moved it over to the TNGA platform, which is stiffer, offers better handling, but isn't quite as space efficient as the previous generation. As you can see, getting back here, legroom shrunk to around 35 inches, which is not bad. Somebody like my height, 5'7", can get back here and feel comfortable. However, the old Corolla had like some of the biggest backseat space in the segment. This one, as you can see, is still really good. You have a nearly flat floor here. There's no rear seat air vents or any kind of power outlet back here. When I shut the door has the same relatively solid sounding thumb. It is hard touch plastic back here, but I do like the contrast two-tone that you find on this particular trim. The SE also includes a nice armrest here that folds down, which is good. The cloth material here feels okay, but I probably would prefer the leatherette material that you get on the XSE version, and you can see there's only one map pocket as well. So those of you who have not driven the current generation Toyota Corolla are in for a really big surprise, because Toyota seriously upgraded this car last year when they finally moved it to the TNGA platform. I had the pleasure of driving a hatch and a sedan, and you can get them with a manual transmission. The one I'm driving has the super rare stick. So the fact that we can get a Corolla with a stick, but a lot of its competitors don't even offer a stick, you know, this is obviously Toyota showing that they want to be taken more seriously in the sportier, you know, sport compact realm, even though the Corolla has never been known for something like that. Now, the fact that this transmission also includes automatic rev matching is really impressive. I got it to chirp second. So the beauty about driving a car like this is you can drive it hard. You can basically drive it like you stole it, like a Miata, and it doesn't have too much power to where, you know, you get into too much trouble with this car. It gets to 60 in the mid 7-second range. The manual to me feels like the more fun option, obviously, although I believe the CVT is actually slightly quicker if you go for the CVT. The manual is just far more engaging, and it makes this car feel more like, you know, a sportier car as opposed to the CVT. The CVT, even though it has that physical first gear, actually, you know, is a good transmission. It just kind of sucks the life out of the Corolla. So this, to me, is the way to get this car if you're going to go for this model, to get it with a 6-speed manual. It really makes this car more pleasant to drive. Now, the rest of the driving dynamics here, the suspension, it got a ½ inch lower, it got stiffer springs, and I'm noticing right away that the ride is pretty firm. Now, it's not too firm for me. However, if you guys drive a regular Corolla or even like a Civic Si, this is going to be a little bit too firm for most people. It just doesn't need to be this firm. It feels like somebody has replaced the suspension and put aftermarket lowering springs on it, and it's just ruined the ride quality. So that's kind of a problem for me. It may actually even be a deal breaker. I wouldn't personally enjoy driving this daily. The seats are relatively comfortable still. Noise levels in here are fine. I don't really hear much other than just the buzziness of the engine. There's supposed to be a sport exhaust on this car. But I don't really hear much. You just hear kind of a 4-cylinder that's smooth-ish, but it gets kind of buzzy when the revs climb past 4,000. And because it's a naturally aspirated engine, you're going to be revving this motor constantly to get any power out of it because it doesn't make that much torque. Chirps into second still and does a little bit of wheel hop. No limited slip diff on this car. It doesn't really need it. But straight line acceleration is going to be adequately fine for most people, unless you guys have driven a Civic Si, a GLI, or an Elantra GT N-Line, or a Kia Forte GT. I just don't understand why Toyota didn't slap a turbo on this engine. Now, there is rumors of a GR Corolla that's coming out with a turbocharged 3-cylinder, making over 250 horsepower. That's the Corolla you're going to want to wait for, because this is just an appearance package. It's a much more rare Corolla, and if you like Toyotas, you're going to really like what this package offers you. It's kind of fun to chirp into second gear with this thing all the time, but most people wouldn't be driving it like this anyways. I'm just kind of doing it for demonstration purposes. Now, the clutch on the Apex edition with the manual is also pretty good. It's very light. It engages right in the middle of the travel, has good feel. The shifter is too long a throw for something that looks this sporty. I mean, it's perfectly easy enough to shift, but I wish the throws were a lot shorter. I wish the gear shift knob was just a little bit nicer and a little bit more special feeling. It's the same one you get in a regular Corolla, aside from the copper stitching on those shift boot. And visibility in here, like I said, is good. You have the driver assistance stuff, but look at this ride quality. Like, just this smooth pavement, I'm literally feeling the car going like this over the bump. So that's kind of a deal breaker for me in terms of the ride quality. You do have the lane keep assist with the active steering control, but it just annoyingly will beep whenever you cross the lane marker, and it'll try to shove you back over. In terms of fuel economy, the computer says I'm averaging just under 26 mpg, which is not bad. It could be better, but I'm just kind of driving it. I've been driving it hard all week. Because I'm trying to test out the handling and the sportiness and the acceleration of this car. The CVT will probably get better gas mileage versus the manual, but the CVT is just not quite as fun. I mean, look at this. Rev matching in a Corolla. I just wish it sounded better. It just sounds like the regular Corolla to me. And I was hoping that Toyota would make this thing sound even more aggressive. It just doesn't sound like there's even an exhaust on it. stiff ride. I mean, this pavement that I'm on is very smooth, but it's just bouncy. So try this car out before you guys, sign on the dotted line, because a regular Corolla XSE will drive pretty similar to this. It may not handle quite as well. This is relatively good handling with its quick steering, flat suspension, but it just sacrifices too much of the ride quality for me. Visibility is good. It's still relatively quiet in here. It's just there's a lot of competition in this sport compact segment, and I just don't think that Toyota's done enough with the Apex edition. So if you guys walk up to a Toyota Corolla Apex and are expecting it to be like a Civic Si competitor, you're gonna be pretty disappointed, because this is no Civic Si, GLI, or even Forte GT and Elantra N-Line competitor. Toyota just didn't upgrade the engine to give us more power. They did improve the handling, which this generation Corolla already had pretty good handling. The ride quality, however, is definitely on the firmer side. I'd argue and say that it's even too bumpy at times, almost like it was designed for a teenager or somebody who's just out of high school coming into college, because most people who get into this Corolla coming from a regular Corolla will probably find the ride quality a bit too firm. The styling, I think it looks good in the black. I think it's a tasteful looking sedan, but I do think that the Corolla hatchback is even better looking, so I think Toyota should have done the Apex treatment on the hatchback model as opposed to the sedan. And really, my biggest problem with the Corolla Apex, besides the fact that it's not any faster, it does handle better, the ride is bad, is the pricing of this vehicle. You can get a regular base Corolla for under $19,000. However, an SE starts at around $23,000. This Apex edition on top of the SE adds roughly $2,500, $2,700 if you guys add the automatic transmission. Now, that is a pretty big significant price premium. This puts the car right in Civic Si tester territory, because my tester here is $26,000 with destination. You can get a Civic Si for less money, and I would personally go for a Civic Si or a Forte GT or an Elantra N-Line, because those vehicles feel more sporty. A Volkswagen Jetta GLI is also a competitor that's more refined. That's going to start at around $29,000. A Corolla Apex XSE with everything can actually get very close to 30 grand, which is way expensive. I think at that price, you're really only buying the Corolla Apex because you like the fact that the Corolla Apex is rare. There's only 6,000 of them being made, even more rare if you guys go for the manual. But if you're actually looking for a sport compact car, I would highly recommend waiting for the GR Corolla, which should be coming out in the next year or so. That's rumored to have like over 250 horsepower from a turbocharged 3-cylinder engine. But with all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the 2021 Toyota Corolla Apex Edition. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews. Like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.